Connecting now.
Okay, so it is streaming live, and this is Million Dollar Agent, the podcast, the live stream. It's everything to everyone, everywhere. That's a great.
And then again, it's nothing to no one, possibly.
It's no one to anyone, nowhere.
It's the three of us and Susan, and we're just amusing ourselves with very little interest elsewhere. Anyway, let's just have fun anyway and add some value to someone somewhere. Hey, Troy.
So, Troy Malcolm, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. That intro wasn't your traditional MDA welcome, Tom, but it was something.
And John, how are you?
Yeah, good, Tommy. Really good. Now, look, jokes aside, I am absolutely daily, and look, I'm inspired by our team, but I'm not going to talk about our team, the industry, let's talk about the number of real estate agents that have just put on their blinkers and they're going forward. And, you know, we say so many great, and we had a chat the other day, Tommy, I know we're going to say a little bit about the upcoming, let's call it sort of ARIC virtual or the Legends Live. So many great people are doing so many great things. And when this thing hit, I guess like a lot of people, Tom, I thought, yeah, this could be an absolute disaster. We could get down to like no sales or 5% of sales. We've been about, Troy, I spoke to Jeff this morning. We got an update since COVID started. I think we're down 35% on overall volume and GCI. And I was thinking at the time this hit, we could be down somewhere between 75 to 90%. Because the world was ending, and even though I think the three of us have got positive mindsets, you know, it's easy to kind of go to that worst state. So I'm good. And you know, we spoke the other day, Tom. You, me, and Troy spoke to some of the upcoming speakers. You know, I'm looking at it. You got Maddie Lancashire, you've got Phil Harris, you got Lisa, you got Kathy Baker, Lisa Novak. I mean, we should actually tell people about that because not everyone would know yet that we've got this upcoming.
Yes. So, ARIC Virtual starts this Monday, Sydney time, 10 a.m. The first three speakers are Phil Harris, Kathy Baker, and Tracy Dixon. Phil Harris is going to give everything on everything. That's his style. He is just content. He just goes through PowerPoint slides and then just goes through each point. Tracy, who I just finished a phone call with, she said that she's going to talk about 5 things that she's picked up during COVID that she's going to keep after COVID because it's made her more efficient and it's made her happier. Mm-hmm. And Kathy Baker is going to actually talk about what she does virtually with buyers, sellers, and how she's been able to keep her numbers pretty much at that level by adopting some of this technology. And then over the following 3 weeks, Troy and John, you're going to be with us every step of the way where we have 3 people every Monday. The event is free. Even prior to us coming on here, we actually were talking to some of the tech people at McGrath because the number of people booked in has exceeded the capacity on a pretty decent plan. So this has the potential of being 5,000 people the way it's going, right?
Which is, by the way, what ARIC would have been had we held it. You know, in the real world, and you're right. We thought a license for 3,000 would get us there, and we're about to sort of exceed that. So we bumped it up to 5,000. Look, I guess first world problem. If we get up to the 5 or above, I guess we'll have to bump it again. But no, it's really, really good. So I'm excited about it. And look, and it's not a replacement for ARIC. Nothing can replace the feeling, experience, networking, and the other stuff that happened at ARIC. But you know, the 3 of us and Nicola, the Tret team, and of course Susan, your team, because this is a collaboration between your team, Tom, and the Tret team. We wanted to, we just had bushfires, and when you and I were talking, Tom, we thought that there was a bushfire aid concert, to try and keep people's spirits up, give them a free entertainment event, just keep things going, and so that's why we decided not to charge for it. We want to do it for free. I think it's obviously there's good take up there. We're at 3,000 now, and hopefully we'll get to 5,000. So that's good. And the other thing I just wanted to, Tommy, because I know you never mention these things because you don't like blowing your own trumpet, but someone just mentioned to me they're going to one of your upcoming gyms, and didn't know the rhythm of it, but you obviously have something up soon because I've just registered. Okay, so it's going to look extremely expensive after ARIC, right? because there is a charge to it. So what it is
I was always, John and Troy, forecasting that come May, people were going to sort of start saying, okay, let's just go full on, right? And it sort of worked out that way. So on May the 4th, which is the same day as ARIC, but it's actually daily for 21 days, I'm doing a 21-day plan where what I do is I pick one subject and I do an autopsy on it. And it's very, very dialogue and script on current situations. So it's 21 days. And I've also got 21 people that are people that have been in marketplaces long term. And, you know, Tom Ferry's been kind enough, Dr. Fred, a few others, Shannon Whitney, people that have worked marketplaces in the early 90s that can talk about their experience. And that is for gym members, but I've also made it available to non-gym members who don't want to be a gym member or haven't been a gym member for $97 for the 3 weeks. And I'm using a platform called LearnDash, which is going to allow me to actually see how people are progressing. So in many ways, to me, it's also a bit of a trial experiment using new online learning. So Susan's going to put the link in the comments if you can, Susan. Put them separately, one for ARIC and one for the 21-day program. So I'm looking forward to doing both of it. And one thing is for sure, right now, guys, there is no shortage of training. The amount of content that is out there. Even now, I just saw Sam Rogopoulos, he's sent out a post, join me for the interview with Dr. Fred. I think a lot of people have taken the opportunity of jumping onto Zoom and doing various collaborations. But I'm looking forward to both things. But I have to tell you, I still remember the conversation. I still remember the day clearly where I was at hospital crossing the road. It was a immunotherapy treatment day, and Nicola rings me and says to me, Tom, I want to chat to you about a backup plan in case ARIC doesn't go ahead. And this is like early March, right? And at the time, I'm thinking to myself, is she overreacting? And then what happened is about 5 minutes later, I'm sitting down with Dr. Larson, my doctor, and I noticed he sat back like 4 meters. This to me was the first time that I thought, hey, there's something happening here. And I go, is everything okay? And he says, oh, I think we should just keep our distance at the moment with what's happening. And I said to him, you don't think this is an overreaction? Because I just said that to Nicola. And he says, no, I think it's an underreaction. And subsequently, he was right, because about a week later, everything unfolded. But guys, what's your feeling? Do you feel like we're at, if this was a 10-chapter book, COVID-19, do you think that we're at the last of the chapters?
I reckon 0 to 10, we're at 7.5 to 8. I think we could slip back to 4 or 5 if we're not careful and we're not disciplined. I think the fact that the governments, both state and federal, are now talking in the next week or two, they've done some already of easing restrictions. I think that is extraordinarily encouraging. I think the NRL date is very interesting because they would have got expert advice. They didn't just pluck 28th of May out of the air. They would have got expert advice as to, because once they lock that in, man, it's very hard to change that again. So they would have had the best possible medical and scientific advice saying what would be the date at which we could confidently restart the competition, and obviously without crowds. So I think 28th of May is probably a date that we can kind of feel that if things keep going, because we were down to, I think, well, what was it, Troy, today? 8, down to 8 cases.
8 cases this morning.
I think it was 9 yesterday. So when you get 5 days single digits, that supposedly from the research I've done, says you've got control of this. But of course, 8 can go to 28 if anyone gets silly and has if someone who's a carrier has goes to a barbecue with 50 other people, well then of course we're back on. And one of the problems with COVID, of course, is being spread to 3 to 4 individuals per carrier, whereas the normal flu is usually spread to say 1 individual. So that's why it became such a horrific activity. The disease itself is actually not that dangerous compared to others, but the spread at which, the pace at which it was spreading was scary. So I think I think we're getting back to it. I would think that you better err on the side of caution. I don't think we'll see any live events of any magnitude in 2020 again. I think it'll all be virtual stuff, and they'll wait till 2021. And I think travel to the hotspots, to and from the hotspots, is probably going to be banned for maybe the rest of the year. So, no, we'll see. But the good thing is this industry seems to be moving on. And as Matt Steinway said in our webinars, Tommy, first day or second day we did them, he said, got to be honest, John and Troy, I'm just acting like nothing's happened. Yes, I'm doing hygiene, social distancing for sure. But other than that, I'm just identifying buyers and sellers, and I'm bringing them together. And we're not doing opens, we're doing privates, and we're not doing auctions, we're doing privates or virtuals. And it's worked very, very well. Speaking to Will Ainsworth yesterday, he's done 4 sales in 3 days. Just the success that a lot of good people are having is really exciting. So that's why I think get to ARIC, get to real estate, Jim. Tom, I got to beg to differ. I rarely beg to differ with you. Whatever your charge. Did you say $97 for the whole 21 days?
Correct.
A day.
For the 3 weeks, correct.
Well, I was actually going to say, well, if it's $100 a day, just do it, because you're going to get thousands of dollars and stuff. If it's $100 for 3 weeks, it's absurdly cheap. But anyway, so I think, you've got to get there. In the age of information, ignorance is a choice. If over the next 3 weeks you can spend $100 and get your gym plus ARIC, I mean, that's just like absurd. Anyone that doesn't do all of that and anything else, it's free. I think Joshy Fegan's got something going out. That'll be high quality. There's other stuff out there. You don't want to bombard yourself because, be a bit selective, but there's some good stuff out there.
I think as well, John and Tom, we're going to look back on this moment in time and wish that we had done more. All those books that we've been saying we're going to read, all the podcasts we're saying we're going to listen to, all the events and things online that we want to tune into. There will be a time in the short future that we get back to normal and we all get busy again, and we're going to look back and almost have an inkling to regret some of the things we didn't take the time and really redevelop and rehone and reimagine our skills. I think we're actually quite lucky as well, John and Tom. If you compare the real estate industry, while it's been bad in many cases, and I'm not being flippant in my conversation here, you've got to compare us to industries like hospitality and events. I think they've been decimated. And John, you mentioned those large scale events aren't going to happen anytime soon in 2021. I just really feel for those people out there, because they are very much in the thick of what would be a very traumatic time, and that going forward, I think we need to be mindful of. So real estate, yes, we have been affected, but it could be a lot worse for us.
Yeah, I was going to say, Troy, most real estate agents, when COVID-19 started, I went and did a bit of a mini survey, and I said, what are you forecasting your sales income to be down? And most people said, we're taking a view of we're going to get down for maybe 2 months of 25% of what we were doing. Now, most people are saying we've exceeded the 25%. And I can tell from what you've just said there, John, that your team has done significantly more than that. So if you look at the picture in context, so if you're a decent agent and you were sort of making 200 grand a year, right? So you cop a bit of a hit for a few months, which means that, your income will probably go down a little bit. And let's assume that you don't even make up that extra income because those properties don't get sold in April and May, in June and July, right? So you made 170 grand or 150 grand. We got to compare that. We got to compare that to people that own Orange Theory, Anytime Fitness, David's Hair Salon, the amount of restaurants. I mean, there's a possibility some of these businesses will not reopen, right?
Yeah.
John, what's your view in when you look at small business? Let's have a talk about, before we move into the subjects we were going to talk about today, your view in some of these businesses that have closed their doors now. Do you think they'll all emerge or some won't?
For sure, some won't. I do think the government package is robust and should save a lot of businesses, both things like JobKeeper and then landlord negotiations. So between private negotiations with landlords, and from what I'm hearing, Tom, most landlords are being sensible. They're realising that if their tenant doesn't make it and moves out, they could have an empty store for the next 2 years. So I think landlords are coming to the party. I think tenants are being reasonable in residential, with what they're asking for. So I think between the government and private practice, I think most will get through. I know that a couple of cafes, McKell's that you and I meet at sometimes. Tommy, I was speaking to him. He's down 90%, but he's negotiated with his landlord, and he's getting the JobKeeper. He'll survive and he'll move on. And I think there will be a bit of a surge post. So, I think most people will come back. Most people will be re-employed. Those that lost their jobs in hospitality. Tourism, I think, could be tougher for a while. I think hospitality could surge back and everyone wants to get out and kind of like live a life again and have a meal with some friends, but still being sensible. But I think tourism and travel is going to be hard because travel's got the double whammy. It's got the fear of COVID. It's also got the Zoom. I mean, now, how many people are just going to say, let's just jump on a Zoom call? We don't need to get on a plane and go somewhere. Let's just jump on a Zoom call. So I do think that travel is going to be probably struggling harder to come back than did hospitality. But no, we'll see. I think we'll see very soon because it feels like some of these restrictions will be lifted, and we'll see at the end of that who's still there.
Troy, can I ask you, do you think that once the government or the Premier says, hey, New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, open for inspections are allowed, and they might start off and say they're allowed, but you can only have 5 people in an open or whatever. Do you think that once that happens, there's a possibility that that's going to drive more vendors to call out for appraisals on properties and come onto the market?
Yeah, Tom, I definitely think people are watching and waiting in certain aspects of a lot of potential clients. Interesting stat that came out for CoreLogic RP data during the week was that they've actually seen a small increase in the number of people that have been requesting appraisals and the number of CMAs that have been performed on their actual website. So I think that's healthy. That's exciting. What that looks like when we are allowed to start doing business as normal, I think will be a significant increase. There you go. There's a graph from John that
John, it's upside. Is that upside down? No, that's, sorry. Can we bring it?
The blue is appraisals from CoreLogic. The light blue is last year. So this is last year's. The dark blue is this year. So we saw going along, tracking along, bang, hit COVID. Here are the appraisals, went down here. The last week, we've seen a big spike upwards and the trajectory is continuing up. So CoreLogic are saying that we are probably in the next 30 days in for a significant rise in listings hitting the market, which is good. That'll kind of dilute a little bit of the buyers, but of course there'll be more buyers coming back. So I think all in all, I think if you've taken a bit of a hit as an agent, most have, if you're on your game, you might make a lot of it back in the next 60 days because there's going to be activity, which is why people need to be right now, and maybe we can talk about that today. You've got to be getting ready for a post-COVID surge because it's going to be there. I'm not saying prices are going to go through the roof because there's some financial issues, but I am saying activity is going to very quickly. The minute you can do open homes, I reckon it's going to bang, heap of people on the market there. The minute you can get back to doing, open air auctions or even any auctions, I think there's going to be a big surge out there. And I think the buyers are there too. There's plenty of buyers that have just been saying, well, call me when things are better because I'm just a bit too scared at the moment. Because most jobs that have going to be lost have been lost. And some of those, of course, hopefully, or many of them will come back. So I think once we start seeing the uptick, there's not going to be that fear of unemployment for most people in the near term. They're going to be pretty confident they've saved their job and they're keeping it. So, yeah, I think it's going to be good time to get ready.
Okay. So, Troy, we're going to cover a couple of topics. One of the topics was talking about quality buyers, quality sellers, quality people on your database, and what does quality conversation sound like? We'll touch on that, and then we'll touch on a little bit about what does best of breed look like in the world of virtual, whether it's a Zoom meeting, whether it's a virtual appraisal, whether it's a virtual inspection, and I know that you've got a few views on that, Troy. So let's kick it off. One thing that is super clear, every agent says the same thing. Quantity's down, quality's up, right? Now, what we're seeing is a buyer that goes to a property at 27 Smith Street. Generally speaking, this buyer has been on it, watched a video, probably driven around the street, probably done their research. You're talking about a high probability of getting an offer off this buyer. I mean, they've sort of been a bit of a barrier to entry to see that property. So is that what your agents have been saying?
Yeah, well, Tom, what a great qualification process. I mean, we would probably pray that this was the qualification process we had 18, 24 months ago with a lot of our buyers. When you think about it, they've watched something online, whether that be a virtual open for inspection or a property video. Then they've gone and done a drive-by by the property. And the third part of that is most of the time, buyers that are active in the market right now, they already have their finance in place. That's the biggest indicator that we're getting a lot of feedback from our agents. So those three things alone would determine great quality of buyers. So you know when they're coming to do that inspection at the home, be it private, that they're actually bona fide and they know what they're looking for. They know the product they're looking at, and they're almost looking for confirmation from the agent or the representative to say that they're doing the right thing right now.
We had someone on the other day, Tom. I can't remember, Troy, who it was. You'll probably remember. It might have been Michael.
Daniel and Sean.
Daniel and Sean down at Ballarat. They're doing a lot of virtual. So they've allocated Fridays their day where they do virtual, anything that's being opened or being presented, launched for the first time. They go and they take their iPhone and they say, hey, everyone, it's Daniel. Just going to take you through 27 Smith Street. If you've got any questions about anything you want to have a closer look at, let me know. Otherwise, and they walk them through. And very much like Lisa Novak's been doing, probably a bit longer. These are going for about 15 minutes. So it's like a literal virtual open. You know, here's where it is. And they walk them outside, look back at the house. So it's all good stuff. And they've been getting tremendous private inquiry. People saying, yep, saw it, like it. Can I see it tomorrow, Saturday? In fact, Joel Hollings, what did he have? Troy, 57 inspections in 2 days at a property in his area, Upper Seven Hills area. But anyway, and Greg Vincent chimed in on our chat line. He said, you know, when someone's seen a property to that level and the detail that those sort of open, you know, he's opening the door, he's looking out the window, here's the laundry. Well, once if they want to see the property and arrive, they're probably just validating the decision they want to buy it, because there's not too much at that point. They've seen it, they've had a flow through. And I love professional videos. I think they're brilliant, but they're more like a very upscale mobile brochure, and they're kind of, it's the feel and the sizzle and all the rest. But these hardcore, you know, walk-through videos, they're showing immense detail. Here's the laundry, you know, here's the washing machine, here are the white goods. And so when someone says yes, and they're telling me, and which is not surprising, that the hit rate or the success rate of closing deals off virtual tour, then they say, yep, seen the virtual tour, because the boys from Ballarat are saying to their clients, in order for us to show you the property, we need you to have confirmed that you've actually seen the virtual tour first. A. B is you need to have your finance in place as well. And C is obviously you can't be unwell. So once people have ticked those boxes, he takes them through, and he said that the hit rate is phenomenal. So I do think the quality, and those agents that are using these things is a bit of a qualification process. And no, it's working really
I'm just curious, would you be able to shed any light, guys, on, are they streaming it straight on their phone on Facebook, or are they doing a Zoom? Virtual?
Right.
Yeah, mix of the two, Tom. What we are noticing is they're using a gimbal, something like a DJI mobile gimbal. So there's a bit more smoothness. They're about $150, $160. But they're some of the best products that I've seen for the quality that you get. It just makes the camera move smooth, and you can move around and things like that.
Facebook Live, Troy, aren't they? Most of it's Facebook Live.
Yeah, most of them are going directly to Facebook Live, and they're in multiple locations. So, for example, with Ballarat and even Mid-North Coast, Sawtell, Coffs Harbour, they're having 15-minute appointments, but as soon as one virtual tour stops, the next one will start at the next property. So really good quality information. And like John was saying, they're getting into the detail about the home. So looking at the laundry, how do you open the cupboards, the kitchen drawers, the pantry, the floor coverings. It's not just the sizzle, it's more about the detail.
So Troy, you're saying that the guys in Ballarat on a Friday, they block out time or part of the day or most of the day, and they call it their virtual tour day. They go to one property for 15 minutes, they do it, they get people hit up and say, private message, we want to find out. And then they move on and they go off to another property. So every time they've got a new listing, okay, well, there you can see, well, there's a new process that process might be in play now post COVID-19, that you allocate a morning that you're doing your authentic non-videographer videos. I think that's a winner. I've got to tell you, I can't help it. I trust the non-videographer video more, because the videographer's one, I know that sometimes some of these agents want 20 takes on it, right? They want everything to look perfect. So you do know it is a little bit artificial.
Yeah, no, they definitely. The other thing, Tom, with that, yeah, you're right. They're doing that 15 minutes, and they're also, someone says, "Can you show me the washing machine or something?" You know, so, some detail that you typically wouldn't, and then you can do it. So they're monitoring comments and questions. The other thing is, I watched John McManus do one the other day, and it was extraordinarily professional. It was hand done, homemade. It wasn't done by a professional, but from a vendor's perspective or potential vendor. The guys from Ballarat said, here's one of the things one is they're getting qualified buyers, ring them up saying, I love it, can I see it tomorrow? And they're buying it. Two is they're getting vendors very excited, watching their own video and seeing how their agent's showing their property off. Three is they're getting pipeline vendors looking at it and they're saying, I like the way those guys are representing that property. It's real, it's authentic. I like the way they're describing it. And I was watching one John McManus did the other day at Artarmon or Willoughby, and it was just so professional, and the way he was talking about it and talking about the area. And I thought, man, if I was thinking of selling a property, that's the dude I want to represent me. So you can show your wares, you can give your vendor a great experience saying, you know, here's what I'm doing, and here's what I say when I take people through your property. And you can get buyers like immediately from image, seen it on REA, now I've seen the real deal, now I'm going to look at the property, I better take my checkbook. So interesting.
The rate of viewers as well is huge on these. Most of them are averaging about 300 to 500 views per property, Tom and John. So we're not just saying, you know, 5 or 6 people are watching it on the YouTube channel. There is actually a significant amount of people. Maybe it's because they've got more time, maybe because they get the notification that it's on Facebook Live. There's a significant amount of people that are watching these, and they're watching multiple properties. That's the other great thing about this, and the insight is that it's not just they're there to watch one or they're just attending one open for inspections. They're actually extending and casting their net even further and considering properties maybe they didn't even have on their radar.
Beautiful. Whilst we're talking about virtual, I mean, apart from doing virtual property tours, pretty much every person that you meet today in the business world, whether they're a real estate agent or a consumer of product or services, have accepted Zoom or Google Hangouts or GoToMeeting, but predominantly appears to be Zoom. Geez, they've done well out of this. So it appears to be Zoom. Now, I was listening to a podcast by Bill Caskey, the Advanced Selling Podcast, and they were talking about, and that podcast is more about business to business sales, but they were talking about, it appears that there is best practice with doing Zoom meetings. And it hit home because during the week, I had a meeting with someone, but in 30 minutes, I had his dog come jump up and there was a dog barking during the meeting, right? And like, you sort of put up with it, and it wasn't good for people that were listening. And then the lighting was really, really poor. And it got me thinking, there must be real estate agents, if they're going to be doing more of this, they should allocate a part of their house where they say, well, that's where I'll do my video meetings. And it will normally be a place that's tidy, well lit, maybe doesn't get much interruptions. And is there any comments, extensions on that you want to talk about? You both, by the way, your environments are both beautiful, clean and tidy, because we know that John's the tidiest person in Australasia, and Troy, you're not far behind. You've got.
I learned from the best, Tom. I learned from the best.
I reckon, Tommy, there's 3 components. There's you. I think you, just as long as you're authentic and real, I'd dress however you would dress if you're having a real meeting with them. I would speak just how you would speak if you're having a real meeting with them. So I think that's kind of an easy one, because authenticity is all the go in 2020. So I think that's okay. Then you come down to, Troy, this is more your expertise, but you've got the sound and the vision. The sound is, make sure you're not in a place where it's bloody noisy, because that is distracting for sure. So you do need, and whether you have one spot allocated, or if you might have a couple of different spots that, if you've got a quiet environment, that you can kind of mix up for a bit of mix and match. But I think, yeah, the sound is important. Now I think, well, all 3 of us are using just the computer audio. Some people like to use those iPods, earphones. Then the vision, the vision is, just make sure, just be aware that people see what it is. And if you've got lots of distracting things happening, you might just want to do something about that. But Troy, I think, we haven't got it down to a fine art, but we've kind of improved it to a point where it's very effective.
you've got to have your Zoom space, Zoom room, I like to call it, Tom. And I think we laughed about it before we came on live. You've got to have a space, like John said, that is quiet enough that you can tune in and really focus, has the right lighting, has the right setup and backdrop. I think, again, last week we mentioned that people are actually spending a lot of time on Zoom and they're kind of judging those conversations by your backgrounds, because normally the conversations are a little bit more extended and you don't get caught up on just being on the phone audio only. You get to see everything about
having said that, Tommy, I've been wondering for about 3 years what happened to that Aboriginal painting of mine that used to be in the boardroom at Edgecliff. And then Troy comes on Zoom and it's over his shoulder.
Yeah, I'm not going to actually allow this, because I remember it was a gift from Mr. McGrath.
Funny you brought that up, John, because I was about to say,
I've got witnesses to say that it was a gift.
It looks like it's the most expensive thing in the room, I was about to say, and then John comes up with this: the artwork has been found.
Exactly right.
It was a gift, and I'm very appreciative of it. But it's the last time you'll ever see it now.
All righty. Can I just let's move the talk into language, dialogue, things to say, approaches to take right now in this current time. So let's talk about who are the people we have conversations with. And by the way, we had some really great feedback on last week's podcast. The amount of people that said that those conversations of handling buyers that give you low offers or saying that they're going to wait till the market drops, people seem to like real practical scenarios that pop up in their world. So let's talk about these scenarios. You've got people in your database right there, and some of these people you haven't spoken to for some time. There are other people you just stare at them and you think, what am I going to say to them? They were in my pipeline. They were probably going to come onto the market at some time in 2020, right? What are the kind of conversations that you can have with those people, knowing that we're at, 7.5 or 8 out of 10 coming through COVID? Let's talk about that. What do we talk?
Just before we do that, Tommy, Matty Edwards, g'day, Matty. He's watching. He's from our Ballarat. He was, for us, the forerunner in this stuff. He just sent me an SMS, which I just had a quick look. He said he's watching us live. He just left a listing where they've been watching his live streams. They like the way that he speaks about the properties that he's representing. So they called him in and we said, we want you to represent ours. So that's exactly what we're saying. It's not just about selling. It's about representing yourself in the marketplace. Tom, look, I think there's a large degree of empathy out there, because we've got to realise that not everyone is of the view that COVID's about to sort of be behind us. There's still a lot of fear about it. Some people have lost loved ones or relatives and so forth. So I think right now, still the mood of the day is empathy, respect, questioning, not selling, no self-interest, as Matty King said to us, authenticity, no self-interest. So I'd be saying, Tom, look, we see things are shifting to the better. We definitely know we've had a drop off of about 50 to 60% of buyers, but we know the 40 to 50% that were remaining or that are remaining are actually out there actively buying. And then I would use some case studies. However, it really comes down to how do you feel about entering the market? From my perspective, I think it's actually quite an opportunistic and positive time. There are still low listing levels. We're finding the buyers that are in the market are hardcore, solid, want to buy now. And we think that and this is my personal view, we think as the veil of COVID lifts, there's going to be a rush of property on the market, which of course is for an agent, not a bad thing. For a vendor, you'd actually rather sell prior to there being a massive upgrade in competition. So some of that will be lapped up by more buyers coming back in for sure. And you need to present a balanced view. There's no point saying it's a great time to sell now and, you're going to get run over in the rush there. I think you lay it out. Here's the reasons to go. Here's the reasons to stay. But we're finding the guys that are launching right now, most of them, Tom, are selling within a week their listings at good prices. We're not talking about discount, bargain hunter prices. We're talking about prices they probably would have got a couple of months ago. So I think if I was saying to a friend of mine or a client, because I see them all as friends really, I would be not uncomfortable or hesitant launching straight to market. I think if there was any hesitation from the seller, I would be having a two-step approach. I'd say, let me spend the next 5 days getting my best buyers through. So let's just do a temperature check on the market and make sure that we haven't overvalued or undervalued the property. And then, you've always got the option of launching, post-COVID, if you like. If someone says, look, a little bit nervous, still rather wait, they can do it then. But I think the market's actually fine. I'm surprisingly, because I was a bit of a pessimist, 30 days ago or 50 days ago, whatever it was when this thing hit. But I actually think it's fine. Troy?
What can I just, before you go on, and then I'm going to ask Troy the same questions. A lot of the gym members are telling me they're finding it easy to sell property that comes on now. The ones that they're finding difficulty are the ones that were on the market in February and March, because they sort of came in, they had a view, hey, my house is worth 1.5, and they feel like they've just missed it, and they've just got this feeling, hey, we're unlucky. Is there any dialogue there, John, that you can suggest or an approach?
Yeah, look, I think we actually don't know what your property was valued then or is now. We need to go to the market and find it out, but it's possible that you are down a few percent. Let's be very transparent about that. I don't think, certainly for us, I don't think you're down 10 or 20. You might be down a few, 3 to 5, say. So I guess you've got a decision to make. If you believe the market's going to bounce back quickly and materially, you may well want to wait. If you think the market could get worse before it gets better, and some of my clients have that view that, we're kind of still in a little bit of a sort of a false patch of, confidence that things are over and getting better, and the economy, and we've got the borrowings that all the governments around the world, and we've got the UK and other governments and economies that actually do impact us if they start failing. So there's no doubt there are some people that think that there's going to be a bit more of a hit to come. So I think that, from my perspective, it's yes, you're probably right. We're probably a few percent down. If the market stays the same, doesn't really matter, because if we buy and sell on the same. If you are very strongly of the view that the market's about to pop in an upward direction, I would recommend we wait and let's make sure we're transacting buy, sell in the same market. If you believe the market could actually get worse, and a few people are sort of subscribing to that theory, let's get it on the market. Let's get the best price. Cash is king. Let's sit there then and wait till we find the right home at the right price. So I think it's, again, Tom, it's just about measured, thoughtful, no self-interest, commission breath. This is just about, here's what we think, and then ultimately letting them make the decision. Whichever decision you make, man, I'm behind you. Troy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you need to ascertain straight away what's changed for them right now, how their circumstances changed, and then how can you show the real life examples of what that means. If they are thinking about selling in the next 3-6 months, if they have that as a consideration, what's changed for them now? Why would they bring that forward, or why would they wait for maybe 3 to 5 years? Like we said very early on in this webinar and MDA episode, the changes in work relationships going forward is significant, but I also think that's a significant effect on what vendors and clients are deciding to do long term as well.
I think if you stick to the number one mantra I've used all my real estate life is, what is in the best interest of the client? Forget yourself, forget your budget, forget anything. What is the best interest of the client? And you utilize questions to really dig deeper to get inside them. They will guide you. Some of them will have an initial hesitancy, but once you kind of peel that back a bit, it's not really there. They actually do want to move forward. They just want to check if you're nervous. And if you say, hey, I'm not nervous at all. I'm pretty confident. Things are going well. Sold 5 in the last month. My colleagues are selling them every day. And you just leave the decision to them. I think it's actually fine.
Okay. One final question before we finish off, and we're about to enter a new month, May. Now, let's assume that this is your scenario, that somewhere along the line you were psychologically impacted more than what you would have liked during COVID-19. You may have not had a lot of properties on the market, and you may have not have listed much. You may have actually moved down in terms of productivity levels, and you find that you've only been working every so often, and you've got yourself into a little bit of a rut. And I don't know whether I'm talking about a big group of people, but I do know that there is a group of people that have been impacted. The cycle has hit them surprisingly in a way they weren't expecting. They're waking up a little bit later, and there actually is not much going on in terms of work-wise. What's the advice that you both can give these people if they're sort of listening right now?
having the awareness. So I'm glad you've raised it, because first thing is a lot of people have slipped into that malaise without even a real recognition, because they like to kind of pretend it's not happening. So routine, key. Just because COVID's happened, and if you used to get up at 6 a.m. doesn't mean you should be getting up at 7:30. So I think routine is really critical, and I think routine that involves early to rise, whether that's 5, 6 or whatever time, and some physical exercise is really key, because it's the malaise is often mental, but it's also often physical. They go together. So I think absolutely a little bit of discipline around that, routine, peer partnerships. Now we're doing, as you know, Tommy, and you've been kind enough to join us on one of them to speak. We're doing a daily webinar for our team, whatever your version of that is. I know we spoke the other day, Troy, someone, forgot who it was, said every 4:30, every afternoon, they're having a team get together, their team. One of our guys that spoke recently for us. And that was kind of part, you need to create these rituals so people have somewhere to dock into, because if you let someone sort of to their own devices, it's very easy for them to kind of, lose momentum, lose focus, and then of course they get depressed. So I think you need to reach out and make absolutely sure that it's Dan and Sean actually from Ballarat. You have to make absolutely sure that you are connected. And then when you're in the office, you can see when someone's a bit down, right? They look a bit down and there's something wrong. That's why these Zoom calls are so good, because unless you're physically seeing someone, it's harder to tell. So I think have some touch points, make sure you have the early morning routine going, make sure you keep your exercise happening, and then just dock into some form of ritualistic things to keep you going. Troy?
Yeah, very similar to that. John, set up a plan. Set up a plan for the next 30, 60 days. It may be tuning in to MDA every Wednesday afternoon. It may be signing up to Tom's Real Estate Gym 21 days. It may be listening to the Legends of Real Estate on the ARIC series, the collaboration we've got there. I think setting that plan in place, and then again, like you just said, the habits and rituals. Getting to those habits and rituals like you're already post-COVID, because then when you come out of COVID, it's going to feel a lot easier. The last one I did have down here that I just wrote down is to put a little challenge around something that you need to do in your business. So challenge yourself and then use a peer partner to keep you accountable. It may be developing a new listing kit. It may be developing a script and a dialogue. It may be a plan just to reach out to every past client you've dealt with, but put a plan in place and then challenge yourself to get ahead.
Listen, that's gold.
From one of your real estate gym members, perhaps. Can you see the question?
Yeah, I can see. I'm going to bring up this question. Mel Rosamorn has asked, can I please have a list of Bioqualifying questions? By the way, if anyone's got any questions, we've got around 5 or 7 minutes to go. Shoot them off right now. Susan can actually relay to them. If you're watching on Facebook, just type them on Facebook. Susan can relay them to us. The question here is from Mel Rosamorn. Can I please have a list of Bioqualifying questions? What are other agents doing? If buyers don't qualify and have money or finance now, are you still showing them through? Can I just, I've got to tell you, I just had a memory. One of my first jobs in real estate, John Alsnett from the Professionals in Padstow, he didn't give me, I wasn't allowed to go off and list properties. He had me as a buyer manager. He said, you just deal. And it was pretty much my first year in real estate. And I still remember on a piece of paper, it was on a 3x5 card. He had them stuck up. He said, this is all you're going to ask. He goes, don't complicate it. Do you want to buy a home? What would stop you buying a home right now? How long have you been looking? What's the best one you've seen so far? What stopped you from buying that one? He said, you ask those 5 questions. If you're happy with the answers, you put them in your car. Back then, we used to put them in our cars, right? You put them in your car and you keep showing and showing and showing. And if they don't buy, you keep ringing them up and telling them about anything else that comes on. He goes, you stick with those people. And I actually think that was back in 1988. I reckon it's a probably similar response right now.
Yeah, some of our guys, Tom, are taking, I don't want to call it hardcore, but a very direct approach. And I think again, or was it Dan and Sean Troy? I don't recall, but one of them was saying that unless someone, to Mel's point, unless someone again has seen the virtual tour and is financially qualified, ready to buy the property that they like, they're just not actually letting them through. And I think what I would say is, Tom, could I just get a little bit of background? The vendors have asked me to qualify in these uncertain times. They just want to make sure that every inspection is at a position where if they really like the home, they're in a position to move forward. So the most important thing there would be finance. Could I just check in if you've got your pre-approval for finance? And if they say, haven't applied for it, haven't got it yet, I think either you can help them get it. But I would say that the vendor has asked us to not take anyone through until they're ready to actually purchase. So it does two things. One is I think it's sensible and it keeps everyone safe. Two is it pre-qualifies the people to a point that, if you like it, we're expecting you to buy it almost, sort of thing, without being silly. So I think to Mel's point, I would be just asking them, yes, definitely the general qualifying questions, Tom. What have you seen today? How long have you been looking? Because that's going to have you start forming a question. If they say, I've been looking for 3 years and I've seen, 5,000 properties, it's one thing. If they say, well, this will be my first, it could also at the other end of the scale. I think if someone says, look, I've been looking around doing some research, I've seen a couple of things, I'm ready to go, I've actually got finance approved, I've sold my property, this looks good. And then you say, have you seen the virtual tour? Yep, seen the virtual tour. Does that feel like it's going to fit exactly what you're looking for? Yep, there's nothing there that I was concerned with. Great, let's arrange to take you through it privately. And I think if you do it appropriately, you shouldn't sound like an interrogator, because buyers are human beings and they deserve respect, and they're about to spend $300,000 or $3 million on a property. So you have to handle it properly. But I do think at this crazy time, you need to be taking only qualified buyers through properties. This is not a time to be taking someone through a property that's doing some initial research so they can buy in 6 months. They can do that research in another month. There'll be no problem. But right now, I think it's, from a hygiene measure and a qualification, you really got to be on the ball. Troy, what have we missed?
No, I was going to say the only thing I would add to that is how long you've been working with that particular buyer. Do you have an existing relationship that you do know their personal circumstances a little bit more than just someone that has emailed, inquired off one of the portals or send you something via Facebook or just a direct email? So that would be the only thing I'd add. I think we covered off all the key points. Ricky, there's another question that's come in from Ricky Taylor. McGrath Ballarat has some great examples of those property virtual inspections, and also John McManus. They're the two that I've really seen stand out. There's so many out there that are really high quality, but those two, the McGrath Ballarat ones for me, just are really authentic, and they give you all the detail, and from just a professional wow factor. John McManus's videos are standouts.
Yara Porra and Matt Edwards, all the guys at Ballarat are doing a great job. I agree with you, Troy. they're bloody authentic. They're just good people. There's no bullshit. So have a look at what Kiara's doing. If you go to the Facebook side of McGrath Ballarat, I agree with you. And McManus for the upscale. McManus is almost like $1 million listing, because he presents beautifully. He's extraordinarily articulate, and his is more what you might call more the upscale. But the other ones, these are like real people selling real homes to real people. So I think, but it's a great question, Ricky. Thanks for asking it, because the best way to find out how to do it is get some examples of others that others been doing it. But everyone that I've recommended to do this, that are starting to do it, they're all going gangbusters, and they're all actually saying post-COVID, they're going to keep doing this as a ritual on Fridays, all the new listings, and they're all hitting the send to Facebook Live, and I think Troy sometimes send to Instagram. I think I actually saw McManus's on Instagram last week.
Yeah, John, this is no doubt, this has changed the game. This has changed the game for the way we inspect and view properties before we get there. Yes, we are still going to use the main portals and websites to see the photos and the floor plan and the nice polished video, but this is going to give you an experience where you can ask the agent questions, and it's really just an efficiency part from the buyer's perspective. They're going to be able to ask questions live, get an inspection done before they actually inspect the property. So they may be using this as the first part of their inspection process and culling properties based on the quality of information we give on these virtual live streams for the Saturday inspection the day following. I think it's an amazing opportunity for those agents that are really wanting to embrace it.
Tommy, as we close, when are you back from your Wuhan seminar that you're doing there?
Okay. Well, I'm waiting for the Apple store to open up in Wuhan, and because to me that's the green signal. That's when I'm going to do a Sunday night live saying it's official. Apple has opened up. Australia, we're open for business. That's who was that speech? That was Tony Abbott. There was one of the prime ministers that won the election. He said, Australia, we're open for business.
You're the only guy I know that would put a Wuhan wet market on your
Yeah. Well, look, on that point, John, you know what? We're going to finish with a bang. And what I'll do is I'll actually show you.
There you
There you go,
Come to
Johnny.
Hawaii.
There you go, Johnny. Come to Hawaii. We'll teach you how to surf and come enjoy a cocktail.
All right. So
All right, gang.
we'll see everyone Monday at Legends, but please get in and register now, because even if we go to 5,000, I'll almost guarantee that'll go close to selling. And register for Tommy's Real Estate Gym. 21 days of greatness right now should bring you right into the peak selling season.
I'm pumped, gang. Enjoy your week, guys and girls. Press that share button. Those that have been watching on Facebook, sharing is caring. See you later.
See you, right.